Hello out there. This is not my typical video. I've made over 500 videos. Recently, past couple of years, I've been making videos about playing video poker in the casinos. They're fun. I show everybody my wins, and sometimes I get a couple thousand views. I'm smiling because I'd be lying to you if I said it doesn't stroke my ego a little bit the more views I get. And before I was making videos of going to the casino, I found something that I love and I thought would be valuable to people was flipping houses. So I found this. It was like I found like the secret of making money, and I just wanted to tell everybody about it because I believe that the universe is abundant and there's enough for everyone. So I'd make the videos about real estate, buying houses, fixing them up, flipping them, stuff like that. Now those videos, sometimes I'd get like 6 views. This video is a little different. I'm still up in the air with what the name of the video is going to be. I don't want to do anything like, I'm not even familiar with the new terms. So if I use any of the wrong terms, it's because I'm not up to date. So I was going to say, I don't want to use a title that's considered like clickbait. And I'm thinking clickbait is like a sensational title. And then the video doesn't come through with how sensational the title sounds. So the name of the video that I'm kind of coming up with right now, which is like poignant, and just to let you guys know right off the top, is that any laughing or smiling that I do is not because any of this is funny. It's not. It's a direct result of having some kind of nervous energy and never talking about this out loud. What's sparking this is I'm down in Atlantic City right now, and my sister texted me something like nice, like love you, thinking of you, or something like that. And then I talked to Diane about what had happened in my family about 16 years ago. And I never laid it out like I did today with her. Diane and I have been married for 13 years. The incident that I'm going to talk about happened about 16 years ago. So her and I weren't together at the time. So I've told her some stuff about it, most of it, but I never laid it out in like a condensed summary that I did this morning. And it sparked a whole bunch of stuff in me. So I was gonna change the names and be vague and stuff like that, but I'm not going to. I can't, it wouldn't be authentic. So the name of the video I think so far is going to be What's Worse, Pedophilia or Munchausen by Proxy? Both of those mental disorders, and I'm almost sure I'm not a mental health expert. I've worked in the mental health field. I have a degree from Rutgers, but it's not in the mental health field. I have a bachelor's degree in liberal studies, and so I touched upon a lot of psych classes in school, but I'm not an expert in that field. I worked in that field with people with severe schizophrenia, and on a personal note, I have my own mental disorder, alcoholism. I've been sober for 21, I'm coming up on 22 years, and I practice a program of recovery, and I have lots of friends that are on this journey with me, and I'm trying to take all the drama out of this video because I don't want to come across as this video is for me to get views, or for this video is for any other reason except for, well, maybe there's 2 reasons, and one of them is for further closure for myself on what happened. And also maybe it could benefit somebody out there that might be in a similar situation. They can't quite put their finger on what's going on. And then they see this video and they're like, oh, well, maybe that's going on. So I got my own mental disorder. Alcoholism is considered a mental disorder. And I'm in recovery. And I've tried to practice a program of doing the right thing. And I've been doing that for over 21 years, so I have a nice history behind me. Not only did I get everything back after I got sober, but I got everything back 100-fold. The kind of life that I have today, the way that I describe it to my friends, and it's not just lip services, I have a life beyond my wildest dreams. I would have never, ever thought that I could have the life that I have. And here I am, down in Atlantic City with my wife, who's down at the spa. I have my daughter with me, and I have 2 stepsons, and we have a healthy, vibrant family life. Money-wise, I've never had, I never thought that I'd be able to make the amount of money that I made. So anyway, I'm giving you a little bit of history so that you know that I don't like to point fingers and then not tell you a little bit about me. So I got my own demons from the past that I deal with. So I said my sister had texted me this morning, and I made a decision about a month ago that I was going to cut off. I don't know if cut off is the right word. I want to have some kind of closure to what happened. Here's what happened. About 16 years ago, I called Children's Services on my sister. And the reason why I called Children's Services on my sister is my nephew had some kind of a diagnosis with an illness. I don't even know what kind of an illness it was, but I do know that Children's Miracle Network got involved, and it was a terminal illness, and that he had 1 year to live. That was the expectations. There was talk about before he passed away, and I forget how old he was. I'd have to think. I'm thinking he was 11 or 12 years old at the time. But this had been going on for years. He had been so sick with different things, different diagnoses, going back and forth to Children's Hospital in Philadelphia as well as other specialists. And now came the time when, end of life discussions were happening. Like I said, Children's Miracle Network got involved. He was going to be going to Disney World. There was talk about him being in a wheelchair prior to his death. So me having a construction background, I was going to go over and build ramps over at the house so that would make life easier. And I was just talking, when I was talking to Diane, I said, something keeps on coming into my head. Like, even my sister she was planning on the types of wheelchair that he would get that would be able to accommodate him on the beach. Like, with those big wheels and stuff like that. So she was looking into those wheelchairs so that she could bring them to the beach and stuff like that. Because, a little background on my sister, she's charismatic, she's educated, she's good looking. She was the runner-up in the Miss New Jersey teen pageant, cheerleader. Like, she has this magnetic personality that draws people in. She does a little quirk. She does her quirky stuff, and behind the scenes, would odd be the word that somebody might describe? Possibly. Somebody might say that about me too, right? She seemed like a good mother, like a super mom almost, like a PTA mom, involved in the kids' lives and stuff like that. So my nephew was from a second marriage, because the first marriage was she got divorced, and she had 3 girls. So I have 3 nieces as a result of that marriage. This probably isn't in like chronological order, this video, but I guess I have to just get it out however I can. That marriage was resolved, and she was divorced, and behind the scenes, looking back, there were signs that led up to what I'm going to talk about. And the father of my nieces was accused of, inappropriate behavior with the girls. And as a result of that, he was, nothing ever happened as far as prosecution or anything like that, but I think my sister got full custody, and the girls no longer saw their father. And we're talking 30 years ago. Looking back, maybe he wasn't the best guy. But he never did anything like that. He was never inappropriate touching with the girls or anything like that. But looking back, what do you say? What do you say to a mother that accuses a man of that kind of behavior? And as a man, and you're threatened with, hey, listen, you know what? I'm going to bring this to the authorities, and you'll get prosecuted, and you'll be dragged through the court system, or you could just give me full custody. I would go through the court system and I would fight it. However, not everybody would. It's a difficult choice to make. I'm giving you that background because that's a key part of maybe something was off even back then. So the girls were separated from their father, and they reunited in a weird way, but I'm talking about a 30-year history of not being part of their lives. All right, so there's some background. My sister gets remarried, and they have my nephew. And over years and years, my nephew always had some sort of medical issues. Most of the time, they were like confusing issues and stuff like that. Couldn't quite put your finger on it. Behind the scenes, people would say, like, this is kind of vague. Who's going to question a mother taking care of their kid? Bringing them back and forth to doctors and specialists and stuff like that. I mean, who's going to say, is he really sick? You could look back in hindsight and say that, but it's difficult. It's subtle. People, when I say people, I don't know, I mean, I'm not an expert, but I would say 99% of people that have Munchausen by proxy are women. I mean, if there's anybody out there that knows what the percentage is, I say 99%. First thing I think of is how hard it is to question that situation. Like, what mother would consciously hurt their kid? And I think it's to seek attention for themselves. I mean, who would do that, right? So you don't even ask. So here's what happened. My nephew is involved with Children's Miracle Network. The end of life is happening. He's being seen by a bunch of specialists. I'm not sure of what the diagnosis was. And I start questioning, the legitimacy of the illness that he has. I don't know, it just came up. And then what the straw that broke the camel's back was when my nephew came over. I was living with my dad at the time. My dad and I had a condo. I like to tell people that my dad lived with me, but I lived with him. I wasn't drinking anymore, but I still wasn't on my feet financially. Anyway, we were going to be watching my nephew that day because my sister had something to do. And when I answered the door to let my nephew in, my sister dropped him off and he walked up to the house by himself. When I opened the door and he was on the other side of the door, his face was so distorted from the medicine that he was on, the steroids and everything else, that I almost couldn't recognize him. And I opened the door and I let him in and I gave him a hug. And then I went into the bedroom and I cried. So I had already had questions about what was going on with this kid and my sister. And now I see him and I can't even recognize him because his face is so blown up from the steroids or whatever the kind of poison was going through his system. And bam, something had to be done. Now I look back and I think about the ways that I tried to handle it, and I'm really happy with the way that I handled it. I didn't just call Children's Services right then and, hey, my sister is doing this and my nephew's gonna die. I talked to a trusted friend of mine about this situation. It was something that I had to do, and I think I handled it the right way. First person I reached out to was my sister. And I didn't want to put her on the defense. I just wanted my nephew to be okay. So I reached out to my sister and I said, with all the stuff that's going on medically with him, how about you get a different set of eyes on it besides just yours? Why don't you bring her husband at the time? They were married. Why don't you bring him with you to the doctor's appointment so that he could see what's going on and maybe he'd have a different outlook on it. Like when your kid's dying, you'll do anything to save them. It just makes sense that you'd bring somebody else with you. Got some pushback. That wasn't going to happen. So then I said, I can't be the only one that's probably questioning this. He's got to be taking quite a bit of time off of school, so I called the school nurse. And she couldn't, because of HIPAA and all the privacy, she couldn't give me too much. So we talked in vague terms. And she also recognized that something was wrong. The amount of absences that he had, and she was a nurse, and she couldn't quite put her finger on all the different diagnoses and the rare illnesses and the terminology and all the different doctors that he was seeing. Something just seemed off to her also. After that, I called my brother-in-law. And I said, something seemed... And during this time, I'm talking to my dad, I'm talking to my other sister about what's going on. They're on the same page with me. Something's going on. They're not going to lift a finger in order to do something to stop it. But they understand that something has to be done. So I called my brother-in-law, I told him my concerns. I said, hey, why don't you just go to the doctor with them and just see what's going on? No, because my sister gives some pushback. That's not going to happen. So I tried everything before I called Children's Services. And even when I called Children's Services, I mean, who wants to get an outside agency involved in a family? We don't do that, right? You don't bring outsiders into a family. It was some serious stuff going on. Like, it had to be really serious for me to do this. You know, I called Children's Services and just said, listen, I don't know what else to do. Something seems off, and I've tried everything to try to see what I could do or what somebody else can do in order to help, and I can't come up with anything. And they said, we'll send somebody out. Well, they sent somebody out. I knew when they were sending them out, and I was at the house with my dad, and I mean, I was a nervous wreck. I didn't want to see anything happen to my sister. And I didn't want the family to be broken up. And I mean, I knew I was going to be a black sheep in the family, calling Children's Services on a family member. All those feelings going on, those selfish feelings of how is it going to affect me? But something had to be done. Well, they went over, and then my dad got a call, and then he got up to leave. And I said, what are you doing? He said, well, that was my sister on the phone, and I'm going over there to support her in the situation. I said, what are you talking about? And my dad's not here anymore. My dad passed away. And my dad said, well, she threatened that I would never be able to see my grandkids again unless I come over there and support her during this time. That was a hard pill to swallow. I can understand as a father, you want to do everything for your kid. So anything that I'm saying right now, I'm trying not to pass judgment. Like, I don't know what I would do in these situations. I got to tell you, after all these years, I think I do know what I would do, but I'm still trying to be as gentle and compassionate and kind as possible. Because of things that I've done in my past, I'm not proud of, and I've made amends for, and I think I've made all the amends, and I'm supposed to make amends, but somebody could come out of my past right now and just say, hey, you remember when you did this? And I got to tell you, I just said this to Diane, if that happened, I hope that I would not get defensive and I would just automatically own it. I'm not sure about that happening, but I got to tell you that behavior was unacceptable at every level, and I apologize, and how can I make it right? That's what I would do. So when I say that I'm kind and compassionate and trying to be tolerant and not judging, it's not what I would have done. But anyway, my father went over there and he supported my sister during the time when Children's Services were over there. I'm not sure exactly what happened with Children's Services, because then everything got closed down. And we talked about this afterwards. Anything else? I've gone over this in my head like 16 years, thousands of times. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe something really was wrong with my nephew, and who am I to call Children's Services? I mean, who brings somebody else? Who brings an outside agency, law enforcement or something like that on a family member? I mean, how disloyal is that? Because I'm a big fan of loyalty. I keep on coming back to one thing though. The day that I called Children's Services, my nephew was on Miracle Network's list because he was dying of a terminal illness, and he was going to Disney World, and he was dying, and he was being pumped full of poisonous medication in order to offset the terminal illness that he had. Today, seeing all kinds of medical specialists and doctors and things like that. Today, he's dying. And then the next day, he's fine. I come back to that one little snapshot, and I think to myself, it was worth it. It was worth calling Children's Services. It was worth that trauma. I'm laughing because it sounds so dramatic, but it is dramatic, isn't it? Kids dying today, and now he's okay. Like, this is sarcasm, but I have thought about this. Like, we had a miracle in our family. A child was dying, and then the next day, it disappeared, and he's thriving. Like, that's sarcasm. That's how I used to deal with situations before. Sarcasm. It was a good protectionary mechanism, right? It was pretty poignant. That's how I know that I did the right thing. That's how I know that I would do it again. So, feels like I have to wrap this up. So for 16 years, the family. And what happened after that is, and I don't even like to talk about it because it almost sounds like it's selfish. Like, hey, I didn't call in order to be considered Superman and get a medal for doing that. I didn't do it for that reason. So talking about how this has affected me, it tugs at my selfishness. And I don't want to be selfish. I don't want to be, look at me for doing the right thing or anything like that. I don't try to be humble. But what had happened was I got cut off from the family. Nobody talked about it anymore. I felt the coldness, like you can't quite put your finger on it, but before this happened, there was a level of love and warmth and stuff like that from family members, like direct family members, like my other sister, my aunts, cousins, uncles, stuff like that. Not everybody, because not everybody was that familiar with what was going on. But here's an example, a clear example. My aunt throws big parties once or twice a year, July 4th and also Christmas Eve. It's like the big family parties to go over to. I wasn't invited to the parties after that because my sister was going, and they probably had to make a choice on who to invite over, and I was left off the list. The first way I dealt with that was getting pissed. But really, that was me covering up how hurt I was. You know, in the background, I'll give my aunt the benefit of the doubt, and I don't like to put words in people's mouths, but she was probably forced with a difficult decision, and that is, would my nieces and nephew suffer if they didn't come over to the party versus me? And there had to be a difficult choice to be made, that is me being pretty generous with my outlook on my hand, right? If everybody and I'm not always the most truthful, but if everybody just stuck with the truth, it would have just got resolved. So I wasn't invited to some family functions. You know what was weird? They go out of their way and they would say that my daughter was welcome to come over, but it wasn't a good idea for me to come over. I've been sitting with this for 16 years. It's coming up because I want closure on it, which means I don't want any more inauthentic relationships, not with my family, not with anyone. And on one level, it's kind of sad. On the other, it's freeing. It's happened about a month ago when I made this decision, and I told my other sister about it, and it's kind of a weird, like, paradox, but it freed up so much stuff in my head and my heart that life's gotten even better. I thought life was as good as it could get because this was like a dull throbbing pain. It wasn't that serious. It was something that I could live with for the rest of my life. I didn't realize, what's that saying? You don't know what you don't know. And I didn't know how much it was consuming me. And then when I let it go, and that's what I've done, I've let it go. It freed up all this other stuff. So there, you can take something from the video and you're thinking about doing something difficult. You don't know how it's affecting you in all different ways. So maybe you want to do it. So my dad had passed. He's not going to see the video. And maybe this video will never be made to the public. It'll just be for myself. And if that's the case, I'm hoping that I don't watch it again, because I've been playing this tape in my head for 16 years. Just some thoughts that I've had is, to close it out is, so the title of this is, what is worse, pedophilia or Munchausen by proxy? One is more distasteful, the pedophilia. And plus it's being done by men, primarily. But they're both horrible. They both affect children. They both hurt children. And this one, the Munchausen by proxy, it's more subtle and, harder to detect, and people don't talk about it as much. And I was thinking, there was no consequences. And don't get me wrong, I didn't want to see my sister go to jail, let's say. But one of the things that has never sat well with me from the family that doesn't have this mental disorder, maybe they got their own demons, their own mental disorders. None of them have either made her or dished out some sort of a consequence that said something like, hey, listen, if you don't go address this problem, then this is what's going to happen. Like you did with me, if my family's watching this, like you did with me. Pull back your love, take away the warmth, dish out some coldness so that you can get people to conform to the way that you want. I mean, you know how to do it. That was some sarcasm coming out, huh? But nobody said, you need to go get some help. You need to go to counseling, and you need to address this for yourself and for the safety of kids in general. Nothing like that was done. Oh, behind the scenes, my nephew is I don't know, I guess he's almost 30 years old now, and none of my nieces or nephews talk to me. They're all late 20s, 30s or so, like that. And do I hold it against them? I don't think I hold it against them, but they are adults now, and I'm not in their life. They're not in my life. And, I know that this sounds weird, but I was saying this to Diane, on a really weird, complete circle of events or complete circle of thoughts that I had, is that what I have to offer to people is some good stuff. I'm not saying I'm all that, but I'm a good guy. And I've been a good guy for a long time. And the fact that people don't have me in their life, my family, let's say, it's really a loss on their part. Yeah, it still stings a little bit not to have family and not to know which family members were guilty. I'm laughing because it's been difficult. But none of my nieces or my nephew that I'm talking about have ever reached out and even behind the scenes, said something to me, secretly, to say something like, hey, I know what happened. Now as an adult looking back, one day he's dying, the next day he's fine. Then what you did was beneficial, and I recognize that. I can't say it on the record, though, because I would be disloyal to my mom. But I do recognize what happened, and I know why you did it, and I'm glad you did it. Nobody's ever said anything like that to me. Or my other sister. My other sister has never said anything like that to me. So one of the conversations I had with Diane is, before she left to go down to the spa, was what my other sister did to me. That's the thing. She didn't really do anything to me. I mean, I'm 57, and it sounds weird to say this, but she was my older sister. She was supposed to be the sane one. And she wasn't there for me. She wasn't there for our nephew. And she wasn't there for me during this time. That's been a pretty jagged pill to swallow. And the other thing is, I've been looking for closure on this, and I think in the back of my head, I was like kind of like fearful about getting some kind of closure. Like, hey, listen, I don't feel like talking to you anymore because this is an ingenuine relationship that we have, and I don't want to have an ingenuine relationship. I'd rather not have any relationship. And if I said something like that might spark something in my other sister by saying something like, hey, I'm sorry. I apologize. For what? That's what I say, for what? For not only not doing something about this back then, but then also not coming to your side, or at least even saying that I understand what you did, and I'm not going to be on one side or the other, but I'm going to be on the side of truth, and thank you for saving my nephew's life, or anything, or any kind of an apology or something, because like when I'm going back and forth with the texts, if she would have said, I apologize for this or anything, then I would have had to talk about it. Like, it would have went on, and then I would have had to play this game. Was it satisfactory or something like that? Well, that fear, I shouldn't have even had that fear, because it was never even an apology. There was never even a recognition of what happened. So that fear was silly. It wasn't real. Here's possibly something that sparked. Why now? Why after 16 years? You held on to it for this long. I could have just went on and just died with this. Just went on with it. Like, I go over to my aunt's parties now, and it's never talked about. There was something that happened where my sister moved away or something, and then I was invited back over to the party. Like, woohoo! I get to go over to a party. Man, I'm cutting that shit off too. I was trying not to curse. I'm cutting that shit off too. And anybody else that went along with it. Not out of like, oh my God, I'm going to get them back, but whew, don't want it. Can't have it. I got another family. I got a life, such a full life. Here's one of the things that also sparked it. So I've been thinking about it. I'm always looking at good stuff on YouTube and things like that. Personal growth, spiritual development. I practice a program of recovery where I'm trying to become a better person every day and stuff like that. And I got a long way to go. But here's something else. The sister that I'm talking about with the Munchausen by Proxy, she's now out. I don't know if she's considered a nanny or a caregiver of my niece's kids, so her grandkids. So she's out taking care of my niece's kids. I don't know at what level. I don't even, because of what happened, I don't look at that I can't look at that too closely, because it's like, this person that everybody knows what happened is now in a position where she's caring for children. This is the game that I played. How does that happen? This is how I think it happened. I mean, I could be wrong. But my niece wants to prove her loyalty to her mother by saying, not only don't I believe what happened 16 years ago, but I think you are everything that you say you are. So come into my children's lives. That's how loyal I am to you, Mom. When I just said that, I felt anger coming out of my mouth. I don't like to get angry. So that's what's going on also. Now, because I got my own mental demons, I could play around and make believe I have somebody else's mental disorder. And I'm playing around, and that's not a good word, play around, but I could try to come up with, I could wrap my head around some pretty dark stuff because of my past. And this is how I'm thinking about it. my sister's intelligent. I think she got her master's degree too. She was an educator working with children for like 25 or 30 years. I think there's something in my sister's head. Because my niece's husband is a doctor, that if I can get away with, I'm laughing, not because this is funny, because it's sad. It's all sad. If I can get away with this under the nose of a doctor, that's a real goal of mine. That's a sick, sick goal, right? All right, now I'm gonna really wrap it up. Let's compare that with a pedophile. If somebody's been accused of being a pedophile, even if it's vague, even if it's maybe not true, like how my sister did that with her first husband, are you gonna leave your kids with that person? Are you gonna have that man be in contact with your children, especially if you're not around? And the clear-cut answer is no. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, but not at my child's expense. So that comes back to the original question. What's worse, pedophilia or Munchausen by proxy?